In a story here from InformedAmerican.com from you, Rodney, federal judge rules that Pennsylvania lockdown was unconstitutional. The quote here says, while those restrictions were well-intentioned, good intentions towards a laudable end are not alone enough to uphold governmental action against a constitutional challenge. Indeed, the greatest threats to our system of constitutional liberties may arise when the ends are laudable. The intent is good, especially in a time of an emergency. Now, where's the redress? Government, you forced me out of business. Is there anything, especially in particular, maybe in a state like Pennsylvania, could there be a lawsuit or something for you? You made me close down, and that order to make me close down and lose my business was unconstitutional, Rodney. This has got to have a lot of people fired up and angry.
I'm sure it does, but there is no redress. You don't get something back from the government when they do this, particularly in a situation like this where they didn't do it to a person. They did it to entire groups, and they did it, as they say, for a laudable reason. Turns out to be unconstitutional, so they can't continue it.
Ants, they just bombed the thing and killed everything in the house or something.
Well, and this follows on the ruling in Wisconsin, right, where they ruled their lockdown unconstitutional as well. And so I think it's not redress in terms of getting back what you lost. I don't think that's going to happen. But it's hopefully setting the stage for perhaps a different path the next time around. And there will be a next time where people will think, and it's not going to look just like this, right? The old Mark Twain thing, right? History doesn't repeat itself, but it rhymes. And so I think people are going to look back whenever something of size comes and says, hey, wait a second. Let's remember COVID-19. Let's remember what we did with this, using a sledgehammer for this. And let's see if we could, instead of using a broadsword, let's use a scalpel and try to tailor it the best we can. And particularly make it fluid where we have those break points or those end dates come up much sooner. 10 days, 15, 25, 45, instead of waiting 90 days and saying, let's readdress it much more often to see if we can get back people into their businesses as soon as possible.
Yeah, have some clear guidelines. And that does seem to be lacking. And I'll give you just a small example. It's not a business, but in my townhome association, they still have the public pool lockdown with no real explanation other than a worry of liability. And, people are like, what the heck? And most places have opened. For whatever reason, ours isn't. And there's no, to the point of, there's no like, okay, so we're at this level now, so then we can reopen, and then I think, how can a business owner plan for something similar to that, which is what we saw from some of these state governments. I mean, even with this phasing stuff, we go up to phase 3 and we got to go back to phase 2 kind of thing. And that's sort of not clear messaging and not allowing people as well to take some sort of a risk into their own hands, Rodney.
Well, and the backside of that is exactly what you mentioned. We're essentially held hostage to a lot of these backstop businesses like insurance companies that get to dictate the rules, whether they are well-founded or not, because frankly, associations like yours can't afford it. They just can't. And so, it's like standing in front of the TSA agent when you're trying to get on a plane and he says, well, you can't take this thing through. And you go, oh no, I know the rules. Yes, I can. Yeah, you still can't get on the plane,
That's it. Yeah.
Exactly. The gatekeeper's the gatekeeper.
Yeah. And, and I'm sure everyone's crying a river for me not be able to swim in my pool. But it is an illustration of that kind of mentality we're seeing nationwide with this kind of a thing.